The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and thrilled to be here with you this morning. This week is very poignant for us because it's our last week in this studio, which has been our home for the last 3 years. And we're about to move practically around the corner, but you know, still have to pick up everything and move it. So our studio is looking very different as it starts to, things that are non-essential are being packed, and I'm feeling very emotional. Change is hard, right? Can we all admit that change is hard? But change is necessary and important to get to new things. And that's part of what we're going to be talking about today. So thrilled to be here with you this morning. I am Shannon Penrod. I identify as a proud pony. That is a parent of a neurodiverse individual. Those are the words that my son has given to me to use. You know, if you watch the show, that our entire mission is to provide information and inspiration to that larger autism community, which starts with individuals who identify with lots of different words as being neurodivergent, being on the spectrum, having autism, being autistic, so many different ways that individuals relate to the word autism. We welcome all of those different ways. We realize that it is personal, that it's about identity, and we try as much as we can to respect each individual's way that they like to identify. Hi, Rodney. So thrilled that you're here. Good morning. But I also want to say, not only do we cater to that beating heart of our community, those folks that identify as being on the spectrum or whatever words that they use, but we also include in that community everyone who loves those individuals. And that we feel that by embracing that whole community that we can accomplish more. You know what I always say, we hold hands, si se puede, right? Okay, so thrilled to be here with you this morning. We got a great show. I've got an amazing guest who's going to be joining us in just a little while. I can't wait to talk with him. You know, we always talk about the power of one, that one person has the ability to start a ball rolling and create something that can change everything for everyone. So my guest today, I think, is a shining example of that. So we're going to be joined by Jason Eichenholz. I hope I'm saying the name right. Hi, Nicholas. Nicholas, I'm so glad you're here today. I hope you're going to love our guest today. But anyway, Jason Eichenholz is going to be joining us in a little while. He is the founder of the Jonathan's Landing Foundation. We're going to talk to him about what that is and what that can mean to all of us. I think everybody's going to be very excited. So before we get to that, I want to say that we are live right now on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and about a dozen other things that our fabulous Chris Desmond is going to show you on the screen. We hope that you will check out our 2 very robust YouTube channels that have over 14 years of content on them. I'm talking about our Autism Live YouTube channel and our Ask Dr. Doreen YouTube channel. Check those out because it's possible that your question has already been answered. I said to my son, I've had the funny thing happen that I was looking up. Somebody had told me that I needed to be drinking water with more volcanic ash in it for nutrients, for whatever it was that I had going on. And I thought, I'm just going to Google that and find out more information about that. And I have reached the end of the universe because what came up was an interview with me. Me asking somebody about volcanic ash in water. I didn't even remember it. It was that long ago. But I found out all the information I needed from the interview that I led, asking the questions that I was asking. Apparently it didn't stick. All I can say is that's the point that we've reached. We've done that many shows. So if there's a question that you want to ask, it's possible we've already answered it. I'm finding that for myself. Anyway, we hope that you'll like, share, subscribe, do all of those things. But I also want to say that we know that the lion's share of you, that most of our viewers, and that's actually wrong, most of our listeners are listening in podcast. And if that's you, thank you. We appreciate you downloading the free podcast wherever you get podcasts, listening to it. Please subscribe, like, share. We really appreciate it, especially this week, because as we go into April, I have finished the calendar. It's being looked at and proofread, but I have finished the calendar. We're ready to publish it as soon as we make sure that I've spelled everything correctly. And it's mammoth. It's absolutely mammoth. We have Monday through Friday new programming for the whole month. And most of it we've pre-taped and it's in the can and it's ready for you. We are still going to be doing Ask Dr. Doreen's live on Tuesdays, so you'll want to tune in for that. We're going to do it remote while we're setting up the new studio, but that's what we're doing. But my point is, it's so many shows. It's more shows than, we do a lot of shows. We do more shows than any other podcast, but it's even more shows than that. So if you don't want to miss anything, you can see them as they premiere live, but if you don't want to miss anything, you should subscribe, and then it goes directly to your inbox. Now, if you're getting the free download, you are also going to get some advertisements in that free download, and I hope you appreciate that and love the sponsors, and every time they come on, say, woohoo, they're paying, so I don't have to. If it's annoying to you in any level, though, because you just really want to get on with the content, you do have a way of getting it ad-free. If you go to Glow, G-L-O, like glowworm, right? glow.fm/Autism Live. Then for $5 a month, you get everything that we do at the Autism Network. That means Autism Live. That means Ask Dr. Doreen, and absolutely everything else. It will show up in your inbox. You listen to it at your leisure, and it will have no ads. That's $5 a month, if that's what you prefer. We just like giving you choices. That's all that's important to us. Not trying to make money off of you, but we are trying to keep the lights on. That's what we're constantly trying to do. In any case, we appreciate you liking and sharing and reviewing. That's, if you want to give us something for April, review us on whatever platform you're watching. I can't even tell you how much that helps other people find the podcast. The algorithm, if you review it, it bumps us up, and then more people are aware of what we do, and that helps us to get more information to more people around the world, which is a lovely, lovely thing. So if you have time, review us on whatever platform you're on. We really appreciate it. Okay. So it is time for jargon du jour, the jargon of the day. I really love this term because it's a term that I did not know. It really wasn't part of my lexicon before I had a child. And I was teaching junior high and high school, so you would think I talked around this topic all the time, but I wasn't calling it executive functioning. So let's talk about what it is and why it's so critical, and then we can talk about how this might be of interest to the guest that we're having on today. So let's take a look. We used to do the actual definition, and then, we would make fun of it, but now the definitions have gotten better. Let's take a look at what Merriam-Webster says about executive functioning. It's the group of complex mental processes and processes and cognitive abilities such as working memory, impulse inhibition, and reasoning that control the skills such as organizing tasks, remembering details, managing time, and solving problems required for goal-directed behavior. Okay, here's what I like about this definition is that it really gets to the heart of it, which is that if you want to achieve something, here are a bunch of skills that you have to get to. What I don't like about this definition is if you don't know what working memory is, and if you don't know what impulse inhibition is, you're kind of like, I don't really understand everything that's going on here. So it's a little inefficient, but it gets the big idea across. If we want to achieve a goal, we're going to have to be good at a bunch of stuff in order to get there. And that's really what executive functioning is about. Let's go on to our next definition and see if, from understood.com. Executive function is a set of mental skills. It includes, here we are again with working memory. If you don't know what it is, you're, without a paddle. Flexible thinking and self-control, which I think helps us to understand what that inhibition thing is. We use these skills every day to learn, work, and manage daily life. Trouble with executive functions can make it hard to focus, follow directions, handle emotions, and that's just some of the things, among other things. Okay, great. So I'd like to evoke Dr. Adele Nadowski for a minute, because she's the person who I kept asking people, I don't really understand what this executive function thing is. Who can break this down for me in a way that I can understand it? And Dr. Adele Nadowski sat me down one day and she said, okay, let's just imagine, what is there on your list? Something that you're really wanting to do. And then that day, in that week, I was wanting to go to an autism conference. And I had never been able to go away to an autism conference on this day. I've since done it many times. But at that time I hadn't, because, and I always used to say, who are these people that are going to these conferences? Because who's home with my son? Like, what is happening with my son's program while I am away going to this thing? Like, everything that we have set up, how does that work if I'm not there? So she said to me, okay, let's make a list of all the things let's picture you in the conference. You're there and you're successful, and all the things that need to be running are running while you're in the conference. What needs to get done? And we made a list of all the things, all the planning that needs to be done, and we kind of took it backwards. If I want to be in the seat in the conference on the 14th of April, what do I need to be doing on the 13th of April? Well, I got to make it to the plane, right? And in order to make it to the plane, well, I have to make the reservation, and I have to pack my suitcases, and I have to, right? So we were working backwards, because if the goal is for me to be there, what do we have to do? Okay, great. So there's planning. And then I'm going to have to remember to do certain things. And I thought, oh, well, this is making a great deal of sense, working backwards. I've done this before. I've done this with students. If the paper is due on this day, what do you have to be doing the day before? What do you have to do the week before? What do you have to do the month before, so that we arrive and the thing goes smoothly? But it's not the whole picture. And this is what Dr. Nadowski pointed out to me. She said, okay, but you have this goal, but what gets in the way? Life gets in the way. Let's say that you need to be in the car at 11:15 to get to the airport in time to go to the conference, but as you're taking the suitcase out the door, the phone rings. Now you have to make a decision. Do I go back and answer the phone, or do I say it's probably not an emergency? If it's an emergency, they'll call my cell phone, and get in the car so that I'm not late. And she literally said, you have to inhibit the desire to go answer the phone. And I thought, oh, this is why I've been late to everything in my life, because I didn't have that skill. And you see that if you could have 185 skills, but if you're missing one in the moment, it can cause you to not get to the goal. And executive functions is being able to look at the whole thing and identify when something isn't working, and identify when you have to say to something, I'm not going to pay attention to that because I'm going to go and do this, and put all of those skills together. The thing that was particularly crazy to me, oh, Diane, we miss having you watch us live too. I'm glad you're here. But what was particularly interesting to me at the time, I was doing some coaching for CEOs of companies. They were all small companies, but that had reached a hitch and they couldn't quite. And so part of my job was to help them to do their social media and walk them through why they weren't being successful. Which, how did I have the right to do that? I don't know. I was doing it. Somebody hired me to do it. I don't know that I was qualified to do it, but it was what I could do while my son was going through therapy from home. So I was doing it to the best of my ability. But I kept seeing that these CEOs had done a whole bunch of good stuff, but then there was like one little loose end that they didn't tie, or that they didn't see that wasn't working, that they weren't flexible enough to shift, or that they were allowing something to take their focus. In order to be successful at goals, there's so many different things that you have to take into consideration, including that sometimes you can't see it yourself. Sometimes as an executive, you have to have another eye. You have to have assistants, you have to have a board, you have to have people who help you to see that we are not on track for the thing we said we wanted to do. Sometimes it's even just identifying what's the goal. When we were talking about starting Autism Live back in the day, it was very important to me that we quickly find what the mission was. And once I knew, oh, we're here to provide information and inspiration, well, then that gets easier to decide all the other things, right? But let me tell you, it's taken a lot of executive functions to keep us on the air. And there are places where we could still be doing so much better that, require executive functions. So a set of skills that help you to achieve a goal. Now, we can certainly look at this for ourselves, and we can see how maybe we could use this, right? But then stop and think about your typical teenager. And this is what's also funny to me, was that I was teaching high school, and we should have been using this word, but we weren't. But we were talking about I was teaching junior high and high school, and we were teaching them how to use a planner, how to work backwards, how to notice when something wasn't working, right? All of those things. Critical, because if kids get to high school and college and they don't have this, even the brightest kids, the smartest kids are going to have trouble getting a grade good enough to graduate, right? And they're going to have trouble getting the project done. They're going to have all these things that are going to prevent them from having the full educational experience and moving forward with that. Now let's consider our kiddos that are on the spectrum, who are very rule-oriented. If we give them these tools, we find that they're wildly successful. But if we don't, it's the example that we've all said. Our kiddos do the homework, but somehow the homework doesn't get turned in. Well, that's a whole set of executive functions, and that's part of that working memory. I need to remember that when I get to school, that I got to follow this teacher's rules of this piece of paper has to go in that bin, or she's not going to grade it. I'm not going to get credit for it, right? Critical stuff, that getting to the goal. And sometimes even understanding why that goal is important is part of it. So executive functions, it's a very good thing, and it's very good for all of us. Let's not leave our friends and our loved ones who are on the autism spectrum out of that good stuff. Everybody can use a tune-up for this. All right, which leads me to our guest and some of the things that we're going to be talking about today. So Jason Eichenholz is an amazing tech executive, a serial entrepreneur, I love that, a philanthropist, and a pioneer in photonics-enabled product development. I have no idea what that means, but we're going to ask him. As a father of a son with autism, his next chapter is Jonathan's Landing Foundation, an initiative to transform awareness, housing, and employment opportunities for individuals with autism. Did I not say that you guys were going to love this topic today and this guest? Let us welcome, for the first time ever on Autism Live, Jason Eichenholz. Did I get the name right?
You got it perfect. Thank you so much, Shannon.
So glad.
It's an honor to be here.
Well,
love the podcast.
It's very exciting for us because I said at the start of the show, we like to talk about the power of one. And I don't know about you, but I hate stereotypes. And when a lot of times people will say to me, oh, well, the dads just aren't as involved. And I'm going to cry foul on that, because I have met some of the most amazing dads doing this show. And I want you to know you are included in that. You are a dad getting it done, and it's absolutely amazing. So I don't know where to start, but I think we got to start with how you came to this community, because you got conscripted. Let's talk a little bit about you and your son and how this came to be.
So when Jonathan's my son, he's now 19, turning 20 in a few weeks. Jonathan was slow in development, so we did early steps, figured some things out, and then right around age 3, we got that diagnosis. And I guess we would call it, we became a pony. So what did that mean? We didn't know. What is autism? How does that affect us? But what the doctor said, and I'll never forget this, is he told me and his mom that Jonathan has his feet in 2 different worlds. He has this clearly, if you meet him, if you spend any time with Jonathan, it takes you 30 seconds or so to figure out he's on the spectrum. But you'll also see that he's incredibly social. And as as a child, he was always social, really interested in adults, but he can pretty much talk to anybody. And we call him the mayor when he goes places because he's super social. But he's got those feet in both worlds. And the doctor said it was our responsibility to do everything we could to pull him out of that world and into the world we're in. And that was really has been our mantra since we got that diagnosis. But the one thing that the doctor forgot and didn't quite understand is that Jonathan's world, that neurotypical versus neurodiverse world, that world is pure. Everything with Jonathan is pure. He can't fake something. He can't lie. It's a pure world. And we would be remiss if we didn't bring a little bit of that pure world into our world as we're building Jonathan's Landing.
What a beautiful, I'm so happy to hear you say that, because I was having a little bit of a, why does it only have to be one-sided? So that's beautiful. That is just beautiful. We need to crochet that onto a pillow, right? But I can imagine that it was kind of hard finding the way to balance all of that. What were the early years like for you guys?
The early years were hard. We started with, we're going to do inclusion and we're going to put him into a neurotypical classroom. But Jonathan was happy sitting in the corner and just sitting in the corner and playing with a musical toy and stimming on something. So then we tried a different classroom, and then Jonathan was a bit of a Houdini. He would escape the house. He would escape the classroom. He did that a lot. But what we found is that the kids that would get the attention from the teachers were either the kids that were high functioning and they were interacting with the teacher, or the kids that had a lot of problem behaviors. Yeah. But if you were in the middle and you were happy sitting in the side of the room, well, then you kind of got left out. And so we eventually went from inclusion to a specialized classroom in a charter school to one-on-one with more intensive ABA. And that became 2-on-1, that became 3-on-1, and then, less and less restrictive environments and more opportunities. And today, Jonathan is a very, very happy boy, as I said, 99% of the time.
I love that. But you kind of, I think you have this amazing talent because usually, you said he's about to be 20, correct?
Right. Yes.
And usually parents, I just said I don't like stereotypes, and here I am going there. A lot of times, parents, there's so many different gates you have to go through, and realizing that there is going to be this huge drop-off for services isn't really abundantly clear to a lot of parents until they're right up against it. But it feels like you saw it coming. When did you start to see that there was going to be this cliff?
So the cliff and that, it's hard as a parent, right? I got to put my dad hat on, and you put that dad hat on and you look at the behaviors and you look at the challenges, and whether it's in the early days of how many protocols could he break to get, out of doing something to, how do you get him potty trained? How he would take off diapers in the middle of the night. We had to put his pajamas on backwards and duct tape them. I mean, the stuff we had to do to overcome his ability to problem solve. It was incredible. We had to duct tape the toilet lid shut because he'd take it to play with the water. I mean, the stuff he would do.
Right.
I laugh at it now. But I would go to bed every single night, and I put my head on the pillow, and as I lay back and I close my eyes, I would think, oh my God, what is going to happen to him after I'm gone?
Yeah.
And I would just lie awake. What am I going to do? And this is stereotypical for me, although I've talked to a lot of parents about this. And when your kid is 4, 5, 6, and you're getting ABA and you're doing speech therapy, OT, PT, equine therapy, swim lessons, you name it, any therapy, your hope, your dream is you're going to find that one therapy. That's it.
Yeah.
And that's going to be the therapy that cracks it. And Jonathan was nonverbal for a very, very long time until we had a therapist who was his speech therapist, that on top of that was all the oral motor that we had done with him to get his sensory issues and to get him to move his tongue laterally and all those things that we did. But all of those therapies come at a cost, and they come at a cost twice. They come at a cost once, the financial cost. And I watch these parents dumping their 401ks
Yeah.
to be able to afford ABA or afford therapies or co-pays or whatever it is. And I also watch them emotionally get bankrupt as they realize that that therapy may not be coming. And right around 14, 15, 16, you're realizing you're in this for the long haul.
Yeah.
And that's when the insomnia, trying to go to bed at night, at the same time I'm trying to start a company, trying to raise capital, trying to figure out how I'm going to make payroll, trying to make sure I get paid. And they're both coming together. And then something magical happened, and I had great success in work. Call it divine intervention, call it manifesting, call it whatever it is. And it allowed me to take a step back and say, how can we change things? And that was the birth of Jonathan's Landing.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. So tell me, I had not heard of Jonathan's Landing before being introduced to you on, via email. Tell me everything that everybody wants to know. What it is, what it does, how people access it, what the hope is, where you're going.
No, so let's just start with the hope. The hope is for our children who need a little bit more support, whether they're, and everybody calls it different. They can call it Asperger's, they call it high functioning, call it low functioning. I just see when I see one child on the spectrum, I see one child on the spectrum. They've got skills, they've got challenges. Jonathan's Landing is a place for them to go and for them to have a life of dignity and purpose. And we want to give parents a hope that they can have a fulfilling and happy life.
Yeah.
That's Jonathan's Landing. It was built on two pillars. It was built that live and work are two equal pillars as we built something from scratch from the beginning. That was the intention. The intention was to solve for housing for after the services cliff and to provide opportunities for meaningful employment to provide that life of dignity and purpose. That is Jonathan's Landing and what we are striving to do.
Absolutely amazing. And I do want to point out for people that if you know about an ITP, the individual transition plan, that every one of our kids is entitled to as part of their IEP, that in some states it starts at 14, but in all states it has to be implemented by age 16. This is exactly what the ITP is supposed to do. It's supposed to plan for their life in three areas. Where do they live? Where do they work? And then the third thing, which I know is a part of Jonathan's Landing, is what's the support to make those two things possible, right? That's what an ITP is supposed to do. But most people, most schools don't know what to do for an ITP. There isn't enough infrastructure for even the schools to be able to have an idea, as you discovered, where is that? So I love that you're putting those two things together, the working and the living. Amazing. So at what point are you guys at right now? Because I know people are going to be like, so can my child come there next week? Right?
Right.
Talk to us about where you're at.
The answer is not yet. And so it's a big project.
Yes.
No one has ever done live and work at this scale. So what's the scale? The scale is 500 residents in a living environment, creating a place for them to live, pocket neighborhoods where they get the level of support they need, and to create 5,000 jobs for individuals that need a little bit more support getting jobs and maintaining those jobs. So we started about 3 years ago. We started with the play, live, work, play. We started with something called Events with Jonathan, where we bring individuals with special needs, varying degree. It could be cerebral palsy, it could be people from Special Olympics or Best Buddies, veterans with PTSD. We bring them to Orlando Magic games or Solar Bear games or their Orlando City soccer games, and we create a sensory suite at the game and provide opportunities for us to share the joy of live events. So we started with that because that was very simple to do. There's a great picture of Jonathan and I at a Magic game. We call him the mayor of the Kia Center because he knows everybody, and we discovered the joy of going to these events with Jonathan. But what it allowed us to do is to start planting seeds and partnerships with all of the different individuals in the different organizations that were supporting people with special needs.
Yeah.
So we've got the live and work. We're now actively working on the work part while we're trying to design, and this is a hard thing to do, design the live in such a way that we can provide the services that each individual needs, at the same time make it affordable for the families and for it to not feel like an institution.
Amen.
And I don't have a blueprint on anywhere to go do that. So we've got play, we've got work, and we're doing that through Tectonic and our social enterprise, and which I'd love to talk about next. And then we're doing that through creating Jonathan's Landing and the pocket neighborhoods and building. So we are actively designing and figuring out how to build something nobody has ever done before.
It's brilliant. I love it. Let's talk about what is Tectonic and what is Skill Circuits.
Great. So Tectonic is our first social enterprise. So let me just to tee that up to make sure I can understand why this is so, or explain why this is so important. So we have live and work as equal pillars.
Right.
Under the work and under the live, what we've discovered is that if we look at the cost of services for each individual to live after the service cliff 21, 25, 30, 40, and they need a little more than a little bit, they need some serious support, that is huge compared to the cost of the actual apartment itself, the living space itself. So part of what we're trying to do at Jonathan's Landing is find a model where we can provide those services, the maximum amount of services to each individual for the least cost to the family. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to do it in three ways. One, very, very simple, operating at scale, 500 residents, 5,000 jobs. You can share BCBAs across more individuals. You can provide 24/7 support and security. Divide that by 500, the costs go down. The second, and this is really key, is partnerships. We are not doing this alone. We've got the University of Central Florida. We have the University of Kansas. We have companies like Samsung. We have companies like iFix Your Eye and Stratix that are working for us on the job side, working on the skill circuits, working on Tectonic. And the last thing that we want to do is create social enterprises. More than creating a job, we want to create a career, and we want to create a career inside a company where we can win 3 times. We can create that income for the individual where they're feeling like they get that life of dignity and purpose. We can create that salary that allows them to do something. That second amount is that offsets the living expenses potentially, helps the parents out, helps reduce costs. It could be that they just go out and are able to go out with their friends and buy pizza and go to the movies on the money they make. But the third thing is if we can be smart and entrepreneurial, and this is what I've spent my career doing, if we can create companies that are profitable and we can put that underneath the 501c3, we can take the profits from the company and roll that over to provide the cost of services and lower the costs for everybody that can't afford to be there. That's Jonathan's Landing as a model, and we're doing that all open source. Last thing I want to convey is that if somebody says, wow, I'd love to take what you're doing and I'd love to do it in Petaluma or I'd love to do it in Des Moines, Iowa, please come call us, get on the website, reach out. We'd love to share everything we know.
Amazing. It's amazing because I think you probably know this. One of the stumbling blocks that we run into, I talk to parents all the time, and because I was trained by the best of them, Joanne Laura, who was the founder of Autism Works Now, who's no longer with us, but she would always say, everybody needs a job because a job means you have a seat at the table. And people would say to her, but my child does not have a skill set, and she would say, we're going to find the skill set. Everybody deserves a job. But the problem is that sometimes you're talking to parents who are terrified, even if they've helped their child to gain a skill set, they're terrified for their child to have a job, because if they make over a certain amount of money, they won't get their assistance. And then the parents are afraid when they die that their child will have no place to live. So to protect their child, the parents prevent their children from having a job. And a job is your identity a lot of the time. I remember being in the car with Temple Grandin, and in the car was Kobe Bird, the actor on the spectrum, authentically portraying. He was just in The Pit. We have him coming up in a show coming up soon, and he was 3 years on Lock and Key. Brilliant actor. And the two of them were talking, and I was just listening, as was his mom, right? And the question was about, how do you identify? And Temple Grandin said to Kobe, let me ask you, because you're a working actor. She said, I identify as a professor. It's not the first thing out of my mouth to tell people that I'm autistic. The first thing out of my mouth is what I do for a job. And she said, I don't know why people miss that. It's identity. And he said, I identify as an actor. I don't run up to people and tell them that I'm, autistic. I'm an autistic actor. I identify as an actor. And it was such a lightning bolt moment for me about, if we are not helping our young adults to get to that career that you were talking about, then I feel like we're denying them that level of identity. And so, to be able to say to a parent, this is how your child is going to learn a skill set, and this is how we'll ensure they have a place to live, might loosen a lot of parents up to the point where they can allow their child to do that. Have you run into that as well, parents who are saying that?
Yeah, it's a huge dilemma. You're absolutely right. You want to pay somebody a living wage, but at the same time, if you pay them too much, they can lose their benefits, and that's something that has to be fixed. That's something way above my pay grade. But we hear that all the time, and there are great live programs. I love First Place. I could go through a list of the 20 different live programs that I love, and I could go through all the different jobs programs. Ernie DeSantis and the Precisionists. We can look at Nonpareil. We can go through the list of all those great places, but people typically operate in one or the other.
Yeah.
But what's missing is the opportunity to create a company that's profitable, rather than creating a job for a job's sake, but creating a job inside a profitable company that benefits everybody. But at the same time, the jobs can be created for everybody. We can create jobs. We have at Tectonic. So Tectonic is our company, our first social enterprise, and it is cell phone, tablet, laptop, computer repair, refurbishment, and asset disposition. It is a whole vertically integrated company where we are going to teach individuals and neurodiverse individuals how to work on those and repair those devices. We're going to get them donated. We're going to buy them. We're going to resell them. We're going to refurbish them. We may wipe data off of them for customers inside a company. And that's Tectonic. Within Tectonic, we have 14 different jobs to be done. So maybe you can do 2 of the 3 tasks, but not all 3. We can find a home for that individual to do those 2 things and do them exceptionally well, or even with superhuman capabilities. But if we expect them to do everything rather than what they're absolutely good at, it's not a fair comparison.
I love that. So I know that you have a 1 million device drive. Is that part of the Tectonics?
That is part of Tectonic, and part of what we're doing is we have a million device drive. You can go to milliondevicedrive.com and go learn about it. What we want is everyone's tablets and Chromebooks and old laptops that are sitting in storage, you don't know what to do with. We want to have them come back, and we want to have individuals with special needs clean them, resell them, use them for training, or dispose of them properly.
Okay.
That is part of how we can turn a million devices into hopefully tens of millions of dollars to then go address this problem and readdress how you think about philanthropy.
Amazing. So I'm going to be honest here for a moment and tell you that I have so many computers in my garage because we don't know what to do with them, right? I have one of the old Mac things that's like this big that took I think it was a hard disk, might have been a floppy disk. And I don't want to get rid of it because I know that there's stuff on it. I've heard on NPR that there are museums looking for these computers because
Right.
they have authors who donate and they need the machines on which to do them. If I wanted to get this to you, and I assume that you also are looking at outlets like that, museums who want the old stuff.
Right.
If I wanted to get stuff like that to you, how would I do it?
So you can go to milliondevicedrive.com or the Jonathan's Landing, jonathans.landing.org. You can go check out the website. You can look for the Million Device Drive, and there's a form you can fill out, and we'll reach out to you. We can arrange for shipping. We can make sure all those devices come in. The number one thing I ask, especially on the newer phones, like you get an iPhone 10 or something, for as an example, is just make sure you turn off Find Your iPhone and you wipe it, hopefully before you send it to us, so that we can actually resell those devices in other markets.
If I'm somebody who doesn't know how to wipe it myself, do you have a service? For instance, like on the computers, I would love it. I would pay somebody to take files off and upgrade them into a file where I could look at them. Is that something you guys might be interested in doing?
Not yet. We're still getting there. We're still working on the jobs program, and so. But this is one of the great things is this is a model that could go into multiple cities. You could start offering this and things as services. So maybe somebody in LA where you are says, all right, we're going to go create a company that does this. Bring in your computer for $89 an hour. We'll do this or whatever that entrepreneurial idea is.
Yeah.
We've got people that are underemployed. We have a nation full of underemployed people. At the same time, within the cell phone industry, there's a nationwide shortage of 20,000 individuals. These are good paying jobs.
Yeah.
You don't need a 4-year degree. It's a great job opportunity. And there's something called WISE certification from the CTIA, Wireless Industry Service Excellence. We can take individuals with special needs, neurodiversity, and we can get them trained and certified because we're partnering with CTIA. We're partnering to take this certification program and putting it into bite-sized chunks. We call them micro-credentials so that we can start getting individuals out into the workforce in a way that they can become meaningful contributors in society, get that life of dignity and purpose. That's something they identify as. And the barrier is quite low.
Well, we all know we need these things because everybody has electronics that they need to get out of their house, and whether it's cell phones or old computers. And if we can do that in a way that helps our community, why wouldn't we? So
Exactly.
we want to go to Million Device Drive and find out information, how we can ship things to you. And you've said new, used, or damaged. Doesn't matter. So if you,
Right.
I would imagine, I mean, we know we have people that are watching that your kiddo takes the iPad, throws it, smashes it. Now insurance has to, get you a new one. But instead of tossing the old one, send it to them. Let's continue the life of things.
And by the way, and now you know, Shannon, how we got the idea for Tectonic. Is Jonathan used to throw iPads or break them or bite them when he got frustrated, especially when he was nonverbal. He couldn't express why he was frustrated. And Chris Jonke, the CEO of iFix Your Eye, became friends. And hey, Chris, I got another one. Hey, Chris, I got another one.
Yeah.
And we were constantly fixing those things. Now we're going to go into a world where Jonathan can fix them and repair them himself.
Wow. Isn't that amazing? Absolutely amazing. I want to pause to say good morning to Autism Journey with Elijah and Helen. Helen, glad to have you here. So thrilled that you're here. Hope you guys are liking. If you have any questions for Jason, now is a good time to ask any questions. So at this point, do you have, you're in early days,
Yes.
but when do you anticipate having your first group of trainees?
So we're doing the training right now as we speak. We're doing it locally here in Orlando, Florida, where we are. Last year, we got a state appropriation of $1 million, which we're grateful for, that helped create the curriculum. And that's what created Skill Circuit. And that's sort of the introduction. One of the biggest challenges I see in the workforce development space for individuals with special needs is, and this was appalling to me when I learned this, is that nobody asks an individual with special needs what they want to do.
Yeah.
They're told what to do. They're given a job opportunity, but nobody ever asks them. The purpose of Skills Circuit is to see if there's an overlap between interest and capabilities in this space, and if we can ignite a spark in that individual to say, this is something I'd like to learn more about, and if so, to give them the formal training they need to get certified as a cell phone technician, to then get that industry standard WISE certification at no cost to them,
Yeah.
and then to get them either a job out in the industry or a job with Tectonic.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. So if a parent is in the Orlando area and they want to get their child involved, how do they reach you?
They can go on our website, they can go on our Facebook page, they can fill out the form. And so we do two things. One, and this is really one of the great things I love about Jonathan's Landing, is the partnerships. So we work with local organizations in the Orlando area. We work with the University of Central Florida. We work with a couple of different programs, their Center for Autism. We work with Non-Paral. We work with RAISE. We work with, you can go through a list of the organizations in town, and we've brought the training. For example, we brought it to OCA, which is a local support organization. We brought that to them. At the same time, we've had skills circuits for parents to be able to bring their kids, or for individuals to come on their own, to see if the skills circuit and that curriculum and that type of work is of interest to them. And because we've got these bite-sized micro-credentials, what we're finding is one or two of those things often ignites a spark, and then they're interested in much more than just the two things that they thought they were interested in.
Okay. So I have your Instagram, which is Jonathan's _landing.
Mm-hmm.
I've got your Facebook, Jonathan's Landing Foundation. Your LinkedIn,
Correct.
which is company-Jonathan's Landing. I just don't have the website. What's your website?
JonathansLanding.org.
JonathansLanding.org. So I want you guys to go there and get a little bit more information. Now, I can already feel the frustration that people are like, but it's in Orlando and I don't live in Florida. But you've already said that if somebody wants to know how you're doing this, you'll share.
That is the dream. The dream is that somebody, another parent like me, I've been very, very blessed to be able to be the seed, the catalyst to go fund this and to get Jonathan's Landing to where it is. You know, my personal mantra is right up here, right over here.
Yeah.
Why not change the world? That's what I want to do. My hope is that there are people in other cities that say, I'd love to learn more about your model. I'd love to learn how we do this. How can I replicate this in another city? Because just in the Orlando area alone, the UCF Center for Autism services 20,000 individuals. 20,000. I asked Terry Daly back when we were forming Jonathan's Landing, if we had 50-bed facility, we had 50 residents, we're a thriving community, how long would the wait list be? And she said, 5 years.
Yeah.
I then said, great, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm going to 10X it. We're going to create 500 beds. How long will the wait list be? And she said, 5 years.
Yeah.
So we are not going to have the impact at Jonathan's Landing unless other people see the value of what we're doing and replicate and change the model, adjust the model, and they can have everything they want from us free. It's an open source model. Our only ask is that if you make things better, if you have learnings, you share that back for free with the entire community, so that as a team, we all come together looking out after our kids.
So Autism Journey with Elijah, I hope you just heard what he said, because her question was, would you consider expanding to the West Coast? Do you also offer online classes or courses? And if not, would you consider them as well? So some of that, I hope you got your answer for, Lori. And she's an amazing mover shaker mom. Boy, you want to partner with somebody, I think that Eli, this would be very interesting for him. But as to going to the online classes, have you guys thought about that at all?
It's in the works. Absolutely. We want to make that online and accessible. There's, still stuff you need to do hands-on, but absolutely, we want to make that accessible for everybody.
Okay. Even if you had, like, personally, I don't know anything about computers. If something doesn't work and I'm like, I got no place to go. But she said, wahoo, by the way. But if you had even a training for the people who are doing the training, if you had a video, like a class that somebody could take so that they could teach the class, woo, that'd be powerful. Look at me asking for all these things. Like, you don't have enough going on, Jason.
Yes, it's just a little bit going on, but we've got a great team, and we've got some of the world's leading experts in developing curricula, especially for those like Lisa Deeker, University of Kansas, who's been advising us from the early days. So we're going to get the people who are much smarter than me, that understand, as we're talking about executive functioning, understand things that on how to create the key, how to put the curriculum together for those who are neurodiverse, use universal design, all those things that you would want to do is being done as we speak by our incredibly talented team.
That's amazing. Absolutely amazing. So I get, because we're running out of time, I have so many questions I want to ask. But for Jonathan, you said it's important to ask, what do you want to do? So I assume you've been asking Jonathan that, and you've been showing him things and having him try different things. Where do you think, what direction is he wanting to go?
So Jonathan's going to have one of three jobs, and I don't know which, and this is going to be the fun part. So Jonathan also loves to cook. He's cooked at restaurants. We go on vacation. He cooks at hotels. It's insane the places he's cooked at as a budding chef. So, by the way, that'll be our second forte in terms of career paths beyond technology. Will be in the culinary sciences and creating, because we're in the hospitality capital of Orlando, Florida, we want to create a curriculum, basically a food technician curriculum as well, to teach people how to prepare foods, cook foods, rather than wrapping napkins and washing dishes.
Yeah.
Because I believe if given the opportunity, we should at least give those opportunities to people to see if they can go do that and thrive.
Yeah.
So I don't know if his favorite job will be working at Olive Garden, making salads for everybody, his favorite thing to make.
Okay.
I don't know if he'll work at Tectonic, where he will be the king of clearing cell phones and tablets and updating, clearing notifications, upgrading the software. He's faster than the phone is. Or I don't know if he'll be, because of his personality, the mayor of Jonathan's Landing.
Okay.
But the beautiful thing is he can do all three.
Yeah, he really could. You've got my mind just buzzing with all these different people that I want to introduce you to. Because, here in Los Angeles, one of the big pushes is helping individuals who want to be in the entertainment industry. So you have people that have that piece, but nobody has the piece of, well, that's not true. Some people are working on the living, and some people are working on, but nobody's doing them together here. So,
Right.
At some point we have to introduce you to people. Autism Journey with Elijah says, thank you for sharing your story. This is awesome. We're rooting for Jonathan. And
Thank you.
I want to say, too, we're all rooting for you. And I don't want to get too emotional here, but I go back to the power of one. Sometimes as a parent, I think it's so important that you Google and ask, does anybody have the program that's right for my kid? But so often we find it isn't there, that it's just not there. And sometimes for some incredible people, you realize, okay, then I'm going to have to create it. And, now you have a bunch of people following you because you're brilliant and you have the right idea and you got a direction and you're moving. It's the power of one. So thank you for being an amazing dad. Thank you for being willing to share what you're learning in a way that other people can go, okay, I want to follow in those footsteps, and I want to learn what you know. I hope great things come to pass. I hope that before we're done, I was saying earlier, when we were talking before we went live, that at some point I have to retire, but I hope before I retire that we have the opportunity to have you come back and talk about people in this community living and working. That would be amazing.
That'd be amazing.
What's your timeline for that? In your wildest dream, how far away are you from that?
The team's got some really good ideas, a way to kind of create a boot camp and other things to get up and running using standard apartments. We're talking to some technology providers and how we add technology to make living independently a little bit easier. The way I think about, and I know we're running out of time, about living for our kids is sort of the adult living cycle backwards. For adults, as they're aging, they go to, from their home to an apartment or condo to, an adult living community to nursing, skilled nursing. We want to look at that in the opposite direction, and we want to really make sure that the highest functioning kids have a place, but also the kids in the middle and the higher needs individuals have a place as well.
Yeah.
And you need to do that, and it's taking us a little bit of time to architect that. But what I'll say is Jonathan's going to be hitting a service cliff in a couple years.
Yeah.
And so I'm building a house with a garage apartment for him.
Okay.
But my goal is that garage apartment is empty.
There you go. That's an amazing goal. That's an amazing goal, Dad. Well, I can tell you if, I'm always happy to connect people. If there's ever somebody that you see that we've interviewed and you're like, that would be a great person in our arsenal, let me know, because I can think of 20 people off the top of my head that you should be introduced to. And you may already know them, but if you don't, let me know and I'll be happy to introduce you.
That'd be great.
Jason, thank you so much for everything that you're doing and for being so inspirational for so many of us. We wish you nothing but the best. And we want to start sending you our devices. So again, people need to go to Million Device Drive. Just Google it and get your devices to them. That's step one. We can all take that action today. I have an iPad that we haven't been able to break into that somebody donated. It's yours. We'll get that off to you. And then it's going to take me a minute to dust off the stuff in the garage. But we'll get it to you eventually. But the iPad, we're moving. And I'm like, what am I going to do with this? I'm sending it to you. All right. Thank you so much for being here. And give our love to everybody there, most especially to Jonathan.
Will do.
All right. Take care.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Oh, I wish we had another hour. How fun was he? Autism Journey with Elijah says, Shannon, if you retire anytime soon, my heart would be broken. Autism Live would never be the same in our eyes. Autism Live would love a real gem. Well, it's not anytime soon. That's for sure. I still have so much, but you got to start thinking of these things, right? So I don't know, but eventually, because eventually. but not anytime soon, at least not in the next 3 years. So here we go. I want to take just a moment to talk about tomorrow's show. We have the fabulous Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh. I'm told we have her live. I don't know if we're going to have her in studio or whether she is at distance, but I'm told that we have her, and I'm excited because we weren't able to do last week's show. But part of the reason why we weren't able to do last week's show is because we were filming something that's just like a week and a half away, a big, huge special event on Autism Live talking about the P2I project and talking about toxicity and the effects on toxicity. And we have a panel of experts that we were able to film with to talk about what toxicity does and how it shows up, and removing that toxicity, what they see in both women before conception, during conception, babies when they're little children, teens, and adults, specifically on the spectrum. What happens when we reduce the toxic load in their body? What do we see as a result? Honestly, it blows my mind. I can't wait to show that to you guys. But tomorrow, we will be here with Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh. And then on Wednesday, for our last show before April, we've got the top 10 things that I encourage you to do during April A month, Autism Month, and everybody has a different word. We're going to talk about that on Wednesday. Then starting on Monday, we are in our April schedule. Even though technically Monday is still in March, it's still part of April for us. So we're going to be publishing that calendar as soon as it's proofread, and you guys can mark things off. But honestly, the best way not to miss something is to subscribe. So there you go. Autism Journey with Elijah says, I miss Dr. Doreen so much. My schedule is crazy lately. Please let her know we miss her. I will absolutely let her know that. And remember, it's great to watch live, but you can always catch up later because we podcast. That's why we podcast. All right, my friends, so great to be here with you. I hope you enjoyed this really inspirational show. We'll be back tomorrow. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now. If you found anything helpful in this video, please give us a like. In fact, make sure that you smash that subscribe button on YouTube and give us a like on Facebook. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Instagram for important updates. And please download our free podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much. See you next time.